All right, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Daniel Smith, and in this video, I'm going to discuss the Shorinryu side of Isshinryu actually being as powerful or more powerful than the Goju-ryu side of Isshinryu. Even though about 90% of the kata techniques in Isshinryu come from Goju-ryu, about 95% of the total techniques in Isshinryu are actually empty-handed, open-handed grappling techniques. So we do have the punching power of Goju-ryu fighters because we train to have the punching power of Goju-ryu fighters, but we also train the Shorin-ryu side of Isshinryu obsessively. Whenever I was probably late into first degree brown belt, I was still not really winning sparring matches against the second dans in the dojo. They were the only people that were still beating me. And my sensei, Mark Myers, would always tell me, "Wait, work on your submissions, work on your submissions." And I'm like, I had a hard time understanding how I was supposed to use submissions in stand up against second degree black belts, especially the heavyweight Matt, who was an ex Marine and an 8-year veteran of the police force at the time, and was 235 pounds of lean muscle and knew really all 800 submissions in Isshinryu. All right. So I had a hard time understanding how I was supposed to submit Darren, who was so much faster than me at the time. And I didn't realize that if you work on the timing of your submission, a middleweight can negate the speed of a lightweight. 185 pound middleweight, as I was at the time, can negate the speed of a 155-pound lightweight by using his open hand techniques. And that's what Sensei was trying to get me to understand. But he started just telling me, work on your submissions, Wade. You need submissions. And I'm like, I don't understand how to apply the submissions to somebody that's that much faster than me and, 4 belt ranks above me at the time, because first degree brown belt is literally 4 belt ranks below second dan. All right. So one day, probably either very late in first degree brown belt or else early in second degree brown belt, after the cardio kickboxing class and whatnot, Sensei Mark took me aside before the traditional class started. And he's like, "Wait, I'm going to show you some things that you really need for sparring. I'm going to teach you how to beat Darren and Matt, and I'm even going to teach you how to beat 2 Navy SEALs in a handicap match right now." I'm like, "Okay, but I don't understand what you're talking about." So he showed me one of the secrets is Seisan Kata, which is actually the blue belt kata in Isshinryu. And so you have this outside circle block that gets to the inside. It's called an outside circle block, but it actually goes to the inside first, and you're pushing to the outside and pulling down on their wrist. All right. So you're on the inside of them, and then you can counter punch, counter knee, counter kick. So he showed me use Seisan Kata basics from Seisan Kata and Bunkai from Seisan Kata, and I gradually got to where I could start beating Darren in sparring, or at least still meeting him. And then I eventually started outright beating him. All right. By the time I was a black belt candidate, I was outright beating both Darren and Matt one on one. And a big part of it was the Shorinryu just adding very simple grappling techniques that negated the advantages that they had over me. Okay. And so uh how do you beat a 1 versus 2 second dans when I was 2 belts lower, not even able to beat one of them? How did I improve that much in such a short space of time, about a year and a half or two, that I could beat both of them in a handicap match eventually? It's still Seisan. That's okay. In the front wrist lock, or full wrist lock, or just grabbing the inside of the gi of the smaller fighter and keeping his body between myself and the larger fighter, and kneeing and kicking him until he taps out or yells, "I quit." And then I would have to push him or throw him aside and then fight Matt one on one. All right. And then it eventually escalated to where, since they started giving the other brown and black belts in the dojo weapons to attack me, and I had no weapon. The exercise was full contact. They had an eskrima stick, and we were in sparring gear other than that, which is like 2-ounce gloves and 2-ounce foot gear and some headgear. And they had an eskrima stick, and it was like, "All right, Darren, try to hit Wade with the eskrima stick, and Wade, if you get hit, you lose. You have to disarm Darren from the eskrima stick." Now I'm like, "Okay, here we go." So I disarmed Darren, but he first started with Gerard, who was a black belt candidate in judo, competition judo, and by then a second degree brown belt in Isshinryu Karate too. He first started by giving Gerard an Okinawan bow staff and telling him to attack me with the Okinawan bow staff, and I was instructed to disarm Gerard without getting hit by the bow staff. So that's the first time I had to do a full contact disarm of an opponent who was supposed to hit me full power with a weapon, and I was supposed to dodge it, and I did disarm him. But a couple of times we did that exercise, we ended up on the ground grappling with the bow staff between us, because when you fight a judo expert, you better know something about submissions and grappling, because you're going to end up on the ground, or they're going to end up on the ground, or you're both going to end up on the ground. And so we ended up fighting over who was going to try to get a cross arm breaker or an ankle lock or something like that on one another, which we never managed to submit one another because we were both good enough at defending it by then. But let me think. So the Isshinryu stuff is actually the secret to beating second degree black belts, and it's even the secret to beating 2 second degree black belts simultaneously. Even though it's supposedly the soft side of Isshinryu, the soft side of Isshinryu is actually deceptively the more powerful side of Isshinryu. Anybody can be trained to throw a 1,000-pound punch. All you got to do is do 300 push-ups a day and work on your basics on a heavy bag 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week, and you'll have a 1,000-pound punch. All right, but the grappling of Isshinryu defeats the second degree black belts, even a heavyweight. All right. So what else would I like to say? And there are so many grappling techniques of Isshinryu, and open-handed techniques. Like you can just grab somebody by the esophagus and rip it out. You can grab this muscle group next to the side of their neck. And some people it's extended out bigger and easier to do, and other people this doesn't work. But you can even recognize who it's going to work on and who it's not going to work on and grab it. I tapped a heavyweight professional fighter one time one-handed with that. He's like, I don't even know if that's legal. I don't think it's illegal because I've looked at the Unified World Rule Book and it's not banned. It just says you can't stick your thumb in somebody's orifice of their body. Well, that would mean their mouth, their anus, or their ears, or their eyes. That doesn't say nothing about grabbing a muscle group. So so I was just grabbing a muscle group, and he verbally submitted, and he was a 3rd degree Gracie black belt professional fighter with a winning record and a 265 pounder. And I'm supposed to be 185, but I was overweight then too. But I tapped him one-handed. And he was a 3rd degree Gracie black belt. All right, so that's Isshinryu. You can tap a Gracie black belt or 3rd degree Gracie black belt one-handed using Isshinryu techniques.